If you're ARMY, and you're watching this video right now, chances are you already know. You've seen the teaser. You've read the threads. You've counted the chairs. And now, that one question keeps spinning in your head, refusing to leave, refusing to stop. Is it really BTS? Is Jimin, ParkJimin, the man whose voice made 260,000 people cry at Gwanghwamun Square, really going to sit across from Sean Evans, face the spiciest sauces on the planet, and answer the sharpest questions ever asked on internet television? Today we count down. Today we break down every piece of evidence. And today we ask the one question every single ARMY has been thinking but hasn't quite said out loud. Is Jimin ready? But before we get into it, if this is your first time on this channel, welcome. And if you've been here a while, you already know exactly why we're here today. Because the Arirang era isn't just a comeback. This is a historic moment, and every single second of it deserves to be talked about. Let's start from the beginning. A few days ago, First We Feast, the YouTube channel behind Hot Ones, dropped a short teaser. No long caption, no guest name, just Sean Evans walking toward the table, camera following him from behind, and text appearing on screen. Sean preparing for the biggest Hot Ones ever. That single line was enough to blow up the internet. But what truly kept ARMY up at night was one small detail hidden inside that frame. The table wasn't set for one person. Not for two. There were more than that. Multiple chairs. And when ARMY started counting, every calculation led to the same answer. 7 chairs. 7 members. 7 reasons to panic. Now, before we go further, I want to be honest with you. As of right now, there is no official confirmation from First We Feast. No statement from HYB. No leak from any verifiable source. All we have is that teaser, those chairs, and timing that, if you think about it with a clear head, is almost too perfect to be a coincidence. And that's exactly where we need to talk about timing. Arirang, BTS's first album in nearly 4 years, was released on March 20th, 2026. In the first 24 hours alone, it sold nearly 4 million copies. Not streams, not pre-orders, sold. Billboard reported that Arirang opened its first week with 641,000 equivalent album units in the United States alone, the largest opening week ever recorded for a duo or group in the modern Billboard 200 chart era. The album debuted at number 1. Swim debuted at number 1 on the Hot 100. This isn't just a comeback, this is a statement. And in the middle of all of that, the Arirang World Tour began. Goyang, April 9. Tokyo, April 17. Then the United States, Europe, and dozens more cities across 79 tour dates that will take BTS around the world through March 2027. When you see all of that side by side, a historic album, records being broken one after another, and a world tour starting in days, the question isn't why Hot Ones? The question becomes, why not? Hot Ones is the only interview format in the Western world that can match a moment this big. This isn't a regular talk show. This isn't a corporate press junket where artists answer questions with a rehearsed smile and promote their album on autopilot. Hot Ones is something entirely different. Sean Evans is a host who researches deeper than most journalists. His questions don't skim the surface. They go in. They dig. And the whole thing happens under real physical pressure. Sauces that get progressively more inhumane. Hot enough to make anyone drop their filter and start speaking from a place of raw honesty. That's why Hot Ones matters. That's why an appearance there is different from any late-night show. And that's why, if BTS is actually there, this will become one of the most iconic moments in K-pop history on a Western platform. But let's come back to Jimin. Because out of all 7 members, the one name ARMY mentions most when imagining Hot Ones is Jimin. And that's not a coincidence. Jimin is the member who, throughout the Arirang era, has shown a side of himself we've never seen before. Of course, we already know Jimin. We know his relentlessness, his uncompromising standards for himself, his ability to stand on a stage and make everyone watching feel like they're witnessing something that can never be replicated. But the Arirang era has opened up a new layer. Into the Sun, the song Jimin co-wrote with Tyler Johnson and Diplo is the proof. If you haven't heard the story behind that track, here's the short version. Jimin brought a deeply personal emotional concept into the recording session. Tyler Johnson, who has worked with names like Harry Styles and Taylor Swift, described in a Billboard interview that Jimin came into the studio not just with a musical idea, but with a very clear emotional need about what he wanted to say. Diplo, who is not easily impressed by anyone, called it one of the most unexpected collaborative experiences of his career. Not because of Jimin's technical skill, although that was absolutely there, but because of the emotional intensity he brought into the room. That's Jimin in the recording studio. Now imagine Jimin at the Hot Ones table. Picture Sean Evans placing the first sauce in front of him, Los Calientes, still within the range of human tolerance, and opening with a warm question. Jimin will smile. He'll answer with the warmth and energy he brings to every interview. But then the sauces will climb, and the next level, and at some point, somewhere between the burning sensation building in his throat and Sean's increasingly sharp questions, something will emerge. Something honest, something unscripted. And that is the moment every single army has been waiting for. Because if Hot Ones has taught us anything, it's that heat removes the mask. And Jimin without a mask, Jimin who is honest, vulnerable, speaking from a real place, is the most beautiful version of Jimin to witness. There's precedent for this, of course. Blackpink has appeared on Hot Ones. Jennie, Lisa, and Rose have each sat in that chair and proven that K-pop artists can not only survive that format, but genuinely shine in it. And every one of those appearances brought millions of new viewers to Hot Ones and millions of new listeners to their music. That wasn't an accident. That was the perfect synergy between two equally powerful cultural forces. And if you're the Hot Ones team and you want to surpass every K-pop appearance that's ever come before, the logical next move is only one: BTS. 7 members, all 7 at one table, all 7 facing to bomb. Just imagining it makes it hard to breathe normally. But let's talk about the real challenge here, because it matters. Hot Ones is not an easy interview. The format is simple but brutal. You eat, you answer, you eat again. And while your tongue is on fire and your eyes are watering and your body has stopped cooperating, you still have to speak coherently about things that genuinely matter to you. Some celebrities come in prepared. They train. They build spice tolerance for weeks before the shoot. And even with all that preparation, de bomb, the 9th level sauce with a Scoville rating that technically shouldn't exist in human food, still manages to break almost everyone. So the question isn't just whether Jimin would show up. The question is, has Jimin prepared? Has ParkJimin, the person who never does anything without preparing it to perfection, spent the past few weeks quietly building spice tolerance in a kitchen somewhere in Seoul? And beyond that, would Jimin, who is known to be highly attentive to his physical condition, who is deeply aware of how he appears on stage, allow himself to be in an uncontrolled state in front of the cameras of millions of people? Or is that exactly what makes it compelling? Jimin daring to let go of that control, sitting at a table where everyone is on equal footing, and proving that he can laugh at himself? If you've been following Jimin throughout the Ararang era, you've already seen that side emerge. The collaboration video with comedian Lee Soo-ji, which went viral not long ago, showed us a Jimin who could laugh loudly, who could play with audience expectations, who wasn't afraid to look funny or imperfect. That's a different Jimin from the Jimin on the Mama or VMA stage. And maybe that's exactly the Jimin we would see at Hot Ones, if the rumor turns out to be true. Now let's think about what Sean Evans would actually ask him. Because this is where things get really interesting. Sean doesn't do surface-level questions. He doesn't ask about favorite colors or what's on your playlist right now. He goes places other interviewers are too polite or too cautious to go. And with Jimin, there's so much territory that has never been properly explored in a Western interview format. Think about it. Would Sean ask about the years of military service? What it actually felt like to step away from music at the height of BTS's global trajectory, and what it was like to come back and find that the world had been holding its breath the entire time? Would he bring up the creative process behind Into the Sun and press Jimin on what the personal emotional core of that song really was? Would he ask about the Gwangwoman concert, what it means to stand in front of 260,000 people in the heart of Seoul and realize that everything you sacrificed, every late night in the practice room, every moment of doubt led exactly to that? These are not hypothetical questions. These are the questions Sean Evans would absolutely ask. And Jimin, caught somewhere between the 3rd and 4th sauce, might actually answer them in ways no one has ever heard before. There is something else worth noting about why Jimin specifically feels like the natural center of gravity for a Hot Ones conversation. Throughout BTS's entire career, Jimin has been the member who most consistently carries the emotional weight of the group's story on his face. You can see it in real time. When BTS performs, RM delivers the concept, Jin holds the warmth, Suga carries the depth, J-Hope holds the energy, V carries the artistry, and Jungkook brings the precision. But Jimin is the one who makes you feel like something real is happening right in front of you, like the performance is not a performance at all, but something closer to confession. That quality, that openness, is what would make a Hot Ones appearance with Jimin not just entertaining but genuinely moving. Sean Evans knows how to create the conditions for honesty. And Jimin, more than almost any other artist alive right now, knows how to be honest in a way that makes people feel less alone. That is a combination that could produce something extraordinary. One more thing worth sitting with before Thursday arrives. Jimin's solo trajectory, since his first album Face in 2023, has been one of the most quietly remarkable artistic evolutions in modern pop music. Face introduced a version of Jimin that the world hadn't fully seen, raw, introspective, willing to sit inside discomfort and make something beautiful out of it. Like Crazy became the first solo song by a Korean artist to debut at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. That wasn't a fluke. That was the result of years of work, years of growth, and a very deliberate decision to show up as something more than a performer, as a person with a story worth telling. And then came the military. 2 years of silence. 2 years where ARMY waited and the music industry kept moving. And the question that hung in the air was whether the momentum could survive that kind of pause. Arirang answered that question so definitively that it almost felt like the pause had been part of the plan all along. Coming back with an album that breaks every record it touches, Riding Into the Sun, with 2 of the most respected producers in Western pop, performing in front of 250,000 people in Seoul, that is not a comeback. That is an arrival. A second arrival, more assured and more grounded than the first. And Jimin, at the center of all of it, carries himself with a kind of quiet confidence that feels genuinely earned. That's the Jimin who would sit across from Sean Evans. Not the nervous rookie. Not the idol who has been coached on what to say. The artist who has been through enough to know exactly who he is. Let's also talk about what this moment means for K-pop as a whole. Because this isn't just about BTS. Every time a K-pop act breaks through a ceiling in the Western entertainment landscape, they open a door that every artist who comes after them gets to walk through. When BTS performed at the Grammy Awards, the conversation about K-pop in American media changed overnight. When they spoke at the United Nations, the way the world talked about the cultural weight of Korean music shifted permanently. And if BTS sits at the Hot Ones table, all 7 of them, together, in the middle of one of the biggest comeback moments in music history, that becomes another one of those doors. Another ceiling that becomes a floor. Jimin understands this better than almost anyone. He has talked, in various interviews over the years, about the responsibility that comes with being part of something larger than yourself. About the fact that every stage, every performance, every public appearance carries meaning beyond the individual moment. Hot Ones would not be an exception to that. It would be another chapter in a story that BTS has been writing for over a decade. A story about what happens when you refuse to accept that your music, your language, your culture has a ceiling. And here's something that doesn't get talked about enough when we discuss BTS in Western media spaces. The language barrier has never actually been a barrier for Jimin. Not emotionally, not artistically. There is a long-standing misconception that K-pop artists are somehow less accessible or less expressive in English language interview settings, that something gets lost in translation, that the real personality only comes through in Korean. Jimin has quietly dismantled that idea every single time he's appeared in front of a Western audience. His English has grown visibly across the years. But more importantly, his ability to communicate feeling, to make you understand exactly what he means even when the words don't come perfectly, has never needed translation. That quality will matter enormously at a Hot Ones table, where the conversation gets real and the cameras don't cut away. And then there is the ARMY factor, which is something Hot Ones absolutely understands. Every time a BTS member appears on a Western platform, the ripple effect is immediate and massive. The clips go everywhere. The quotes get analyzed. The moments, a laugh, a pause, a look, become gifs that live on the internet for years. Hot Ones knows this. They've seen what happened with Blackpink's appearances. They've watched the view counts. They know that booking BTS, and specifically having Jimin at that table, doesn't just make for a great episode. It creates a cultural event that extends far beyond the runtime of a single YouTube video. It generates content that ARMY will be talking about, dissecting, and celebrating for months. That kind of cultural staying power is something only a handful of artists in the world can deliver right now. And Jimin is one of them. Thursday will answer everything. At 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, if Hot Ones drops a new episode on schedule, we'll know. And if those 7 faces show up on the thumbnail, if BTS truly becomes a Hot Ones guest for the first time in the show's history, then that date will become one ARMY remembers forever. But even if this Thursday turns out not to be BTS, even if the teaser ends up being about something or someone else entirely, nothing can take away the fact that the Arirang era has positioned BTS, and Jimin specifically, in a place where an appearance like this isn't just possible. It feels inevitable. It feels like something that's only waiting for the right moment. Arirang is not just an album. It's a statement about who BTS is right now, not just as a K-pop group, but as a global cultural phenomenon that has transcended genre, transcended language, transcended every category we've ever used to describe popular music. And Jimin, as one of the 7 faces of that phenomenon, carries a weight and an honor that is anything but small. So yes, is Jimin ready to face Sean Evans? Is he ready to sit in that chair, eat the spiciest sauces ever created, and answer questions that exist in no script anywhere? Based on everything we've seen from Jimin throughout this era? Based on Into the Sun, and the Lee Soo-ji collab, and the mirror selfie that made the entire internet pause for a moment, and the Netflix session that looked less like a celebrity doing promo and more like an artist genuinely exploring a new medium? Based on 260,000 people standing in Gwanghwamun Square singing every word of every song alongside him? The answer is yes. Jimin is ready. Jimin has always been ready. And if Thursday is the day, then we all better prepare ourselves. Because that will be a moment none of us will ever forget. Stay tuned. If there are any updates, a new video will be out immediately. And in the meantime, share this video with every ARMY you know, because this conversation needs to happen. See you in the next one.